Hello, how's it going, everyone? This is John Wydogen back again with Natural Freedom League. You can find us at naturalfreedomleague.com. Here once again with my producer and co-host, Chill Will Keller.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
You know, it's another day, another dollar, or another not a dollar, maybe. But we've got a great guest on with us today. Etienne de la Boetie squared. Hello, Etienne.
Hey, good to be with you. Hey, I like to call it the rapidly depreciating currency of a bankrupt empire.
Yeah, exactly.
Nailed it.
So, Etienne, the first time I came across your work was actually when I was working my way through the What on Earth is Happening podcast, and you were on there for an episode, and Mark was asking you about you were highlighting a book that you had written, which I believe was described as somewhat of a picture book.
I've heard it called that. I've heard it called a graphic novel. But my book is called Government, the Biggest Scam in History Exposed. And what I try and do is I try and, in visualizations, images, historical photos, show people the historical patterns and show people, make what was invisible visible to people using visualization. And I do that showing the monopolization of the media and how a very small handful of companies, six companies running hundreds of subsidiaries on the old media side, and about 24 new media companies in search, video, video sites, Wikipedia, Reddit, Facebook, social media, uh, uh, are controlling perception on what I like to call the DARPA internet. And so I do that visually because the book is actually designed to take somebody from 0 to 60 as fast as humanly possible, leveraging knowledge of how human beings learn. And, most people are visual learners, and I make it easy for them to kind of understand the system that has been pulling the strings behind the media.
Interesting. So, what's your background that brought you to put this book together and get it published?
Well, I mean, the main thing I am is dad, and I did it for my kids. My kids were in a government school, and I watched them using what I consider to be unethically manipulative tools and techniques that I recognized from history as kind of this like little playbook to put kids starting in kindergarten, which is a Prussian word that means to grow children essentially in the way the state wants them to grow and produce, a taxpayer and order followers. And so it started out with me trying to explain to my kids the game that the government school system runs on the children in its care.
Was there a specific event that kind of opened your eyes to understanding this pattern of behavior by government and authority figures? Was there a specific time or moment that kind of woke you up?
Well, yeah. So, and I tell the story a lot, but I was a researcher at one of the big four think tanks in Washington, D.C. in the 90s. I watched Ruby Ridge happen, and then I watched Waco happen. And then I, along with the rest of the country was incensed at what was going on. And then there was an episode called the Oklahoma City bombing. And when I worked at the think tank, I had access to a $3,000 a month LexisNexis terminal that gave me all of the newspapers and the magazines in the country, access to all of the transcripts from the news shows, news broadcasts, and everything. And I began researching the story that was coming out of Oklahoma City as to what happened in this bombing of a U.S. federal building, and I realized that what the local media was reporting was vastly different than what the major networks were reporting on the ground. And then that caught my attention, and so I began to dig in, and I realized that the government had blown up a federal building to try and tar the militia movement that was growing rapidly after they murdered 80 men, women, and children at Waco. And once you realize that the government and the media can murder, with impunity and blow up federal buildings and that had daycare centers in them, I mean, you really, really begin paying attention. And so I began paying attention and collecting a lot of the evidence that we put into the Liberator, which is a 8 or 16 gigabit drive that backs up all the claims in the book, has the full size visualizations, the media ownership charts, the evidence of government criminality, and also the what I like to call the healthy alternatives of voluntarism, libertarianism, understanding free markets. Everything the government is hiding from your kids, we've put it onto a single credit card size flash drive or Dropbox that we make available for free at government-scam.com/liberator, including the PDF version of the book with all of the links and the evidence that we, like I said, because it's disappearing off Facebook, it's disappearing off YouTube. We've taken all the evidence, we put it in a credit card size package you can carry with you, and to expose, not just the book, but all the evidence behind the book.
Mm, that's phenomenal. Yeah, so many people have just little pieces of the puzzle, right? So it's so important to kind of consolidate and get the big picture thinking, and you're just having it readily available to the public. That's huge, because consciousness is pattern recognition. So got to be able to see those patterns throughout history, and we have to know where we were to see where we're going, and that's phenomenal.
Yeah, we have a buddy who
Yeah, well, also, I
ahead.
think you nailed it. And human beings are really, really good pattern recognition machines. And so when they see the pattern, a lot of times the pattern is what proves that the system is artificial, that this is, that there is like they're running a playbook on society. They're running game on society, and once people see it kind of with their own eyes, they come to, not just a deeper understanding, but it improves their retention, it improves their comprehension. And so it really is the fastest way to learn. And so for anybody that's ever wanted to bring your friends or your family from 0 to 60 and explain a really complicated subject, I like to think I do a good job using these historical photos, the visualizations, the evidence, the revelation of the method, exposing the playbook, and that's how that's how you wake somebody up.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. Our I was gonna say, our buddy, he's got some visual tools, posters hanging in his house of sort of like diagrams showing the connection between everything, and it's definitely a unique way to reach people, who may not be willing to read a book or really even delve into any of these topics. That's a unique approach, and that's awesome that you did that. Can you talk a little bit more about the think tank that you were a part of, and how you came to do that, and what type of work you did there?
I'll just tell you, I was a researcher at one of the big four think tanks. It's the Libertarian, it's the major libertarian think tank in Washington, D.C. And I was a researcher, and as part of my job, that's why I had a $3,000 a month LexisNexis terminal. And so uh, the terminal would give you literally every newspaper, every magazine, transcripts of the major news programs on TV, and I began taking a look at what the local news media and what the alternative media of the time was reporting about uh, what happened in Oklahoma City. And so this was Channel 4 was an independent news station that was actually bought by the New York Times in what I believe was a move to censor their reporting coming out of Oklahoma City. And the McMurton Daily Gazette, where kind of like a crime reporter like latched on to all the inconsistencies in the story and began reporting, from the ground in Oklahoma City. Um, uh, the the New American was doing epic work at the time in publishing the report that Air Force Brigadier General K. Benton K. Parton, uh, who ran the Air Force's armament testing laboratory and blew up buildings for a living, takes one look at what happened at in Oklahoma City and says, "No way, it wasn't ammonia nitrate fuel and explosive." Takes a look at the publicly available photographs and begins pointing out where there's obviously been Bussant damage, where they obviously use shaped charges. The explosive pattern blows the debris not into the building as you would expect with the official story, but blows was indicative of a blast that started at the inside of the building and blew the building across the street. And then for the kind of the piece de la resistance at the damage that the truck was, it would have only delivered a blow that would have been, about you hitting, a post with a fist. And so it didn't even have the ability to do the damage described. And uh, uh, then to my favorite part of the whole thing, it was the first time that I'd ever seen anything disappear down the memory hole. And on day one, they were reporting other bombs in the building. They were uh, they were actually giving the population press conferences of officials on the scene describing the fact that they'd found other bombs within the building. You watched as the Oklahoma City bomb truck was brought forward to remove the other bombs that they found in the building. And then the next day, it all just completely disappeared, went down the memory hole, and the news just never mentioned it again when that just completely discredited the whole story. It was
Incredible.
it was unbelievable the level of kind of media deception and hocus pocus that was coming out of Oklahoma City. And once I wasn't the only one that was following it. There was an independent committee that was put together led by a state representative named Charles Key. And that independent committee looking into the Oklahoma City bombing found the same kind of discrepancies I did. It became a documentary called A Noble Lie. And everybody came to kind of the exact same conclusion on exactly who was involved. And you can get that movie A Noble Lie on the Liberator, or you can get it on BitChute or some of the, or probably library, some of the alternative sites where some of these videos are disappearing. But you know, it really sobers you up when you realize that the U.S. government and the media blew up a daycare center in a federal building and then covered it up with the help of the media.
Yeah. Well, much respect to you for recognizing and going deep down that rabbit hole, and then having the courage to to do the great work and come out and talk about this and put your book together and do that. And I say the same thing. Any work that I do it for my daughter. Hopefully I can give her a better understanding of the world and how it operates, in my life. So definitely a noble cause.
It's fascinating that you were there doing that kind of at the beginning of the internet, right? You were, that's,
Mhm.
it's more common now. Like I remember when, well, first of all, 9/11, when it happened, I was in college and I got wrapped up in the media coverage and didn't really question much right away. And it wasn't till maybe a year or two later that I started seeing some of these documentaries. And the same thing that
Mhm.
you're saying, those documentaries were based on firsthand accounts, people on the ground, people saying that they heard explosives going off, heard explosives in the basement, and things like that. And so those documentaries were all based on that. And then fast forward, I think, that was quite a boost in my awakening for sure.
Mhm.
Realizing that, yeah, those buildings were demolished, and even just the awareness that like you did believe the initial the official narrative at first, and
Mhm.
it took someone to say it, and then you see it, and like, yeah, and I know other people, they questioned it right away, but wherever I was at in my life at that time, I just wasn't in a place of questioning it. But fast forward to um, the Sandy Hook shooting, I remember at that time being very uh, involved in researching and going online and going down the rabbit holes. And when that event happened, I was listening to it on the radio every day that first week. And I remember it was up to the Friday of that week, they were saying that there were multiple shooters. And I woke up
Mhm.
Saturday morning and I turned on the news, and it was the lone wolf theory and all the talk of the other people that had been apprehended or the other suspects had completely been wiped from the media. And that was also a fascinating um, time period, because I remember it was about a week after that event happened, and there were already videos on YouTube breaking down the conspiracy. It only took a week from the event till there was videos that were showing all the inconsistencies in the story. So it's pretty interesting for you to have been there and kind of had that mind frame so early, basically at the beginning of the internet.
So, the way that I describe it, the subtitle of the book is how intergenerational organized crime runs the government and the media. And the problem is what I like to refer to as control of perception. And this control of perception program starts with the mandatory government school, but it really the main component is this monopolized media system where you've got, and again, it's on the old media side, six companies running hundreds and hundreds of subsidiaries where all six companies are operating as a cartel. And then on the new media side, these 24 kind of new media internet, major internet, social media, search engine, video sites that are attempting to control perception. But, once the internet came along, you now had the ability to self-select your news sources, build discernment, who's telling you the truth, who isn't telling you the truth, be able to get evidence that came immediately from the scene with citizen journalists, alternative journalists, a lot of times on the scene. A lot of times the media is, in the case of like the Oklahoma City bombing, they're doing their job. It's coming out on day one, that what's really happening. They're really reporting what's happening on day one. It's only after day two, that the editorial control begins to get massaged across, all these different media properties. But like, there you go. It's already out in the internet age. And so now you've got the video of the press conferences of multiple bombs found in the building. You've got the video of the bomb, the Oklahoma City bomb truck being, brought up. You've got video evidence and photographic evidence of the aftermath of the building before that they could, literally blew up the building, even though it could have been rebuilt easily enough. And it was that was what the architectural firm did. They blew up and they buried all of the evidence, but all the pictures were already out, and that was a relatively new dynamic in history of being able to get access to this raw information, have it be able to be archived, even down to, that was 20 plus years ago, and we've still got it in a format of being able to preserve it for history. They can't make it go away because we're in an information revolution, and so now we're curating all the evidence, and just more and more comes out, and the whole planet is now starting to figure out that at the bare minimum the government is lying to them, and at to what it appears to be any intelligent observer is completely run by organized crime and is looting the country to an extent of the equivalent of, I like to describe it as, stealing the silverware and ripping the copper pipe out of the wall in Washington D.C. This is we're being robbed.
Yeah.
For sure. And they always have to, the social engineers and manipulators, they have to control it at the level of availability, information availability. That's how they can control your perception.
Mhm.
It's a sham, right? Everyone's getting bamboozled. That's why they have to control it at that level. And it's so important. Mainstream media and the television, right, is almost the most dangerous weapon.
Well, they do illusion, man. They do illusion.
For
But
sure.
and this is the good news, and it really is a good news message in the book. That what I like try to to convey to people is that once you understand how the magician does the trick, it's very, very hard for you to be fooled by the magician's trick. And once people realize that there is, a man behind the curtain in the media, that the media has been monopolized, when you make what was invisible to people visible through visualization, like the example I like to give is, you can try and tell your friends that there are these 6 companies running hundreds and hundreds of subsidiaries, and they may or may not believe you. But if you show them a media ownership chart where they can see with their own eyes, holy crap, it's, like Fox News doesn't just own Fox News. They own 175 newspapers, and they own satellite networks, and they own radio stations, and they own TV stations, and they own internet properties, and they own book publishing companies. And like, you're like, oh my God, it's just one big blob that's giving us all this news. And it just all goes up to like 6 people. It's like,
Mhm.
and they see it with their own eyes, and then all of a sudden it becomes real in a way that you wouldn't have been able to do if you had not used visualization.
For
It
sure.
reminds me of the quote I pulled up here from Malcolm X. The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. And that's power because they control the minds of the masses. And it's funny there, the control the minds. That's actually what government means, right?
Mhm.
Mind control. And that's how they direct us and direct the masses into whatever they want. I think what's interesting is it's it's almost it even though I agree with you that people are waking up and there is this battle for information, it is interesting to consider the fact that clearly 9/11 was something that they had planned for decades,
Yep.
and they still go forward with it. And one thing that I started realizing about specifically 9/11, but now basically every event after that, is that one of their techniques is to, I believe, they make it so they almost make up their own conspiracies. So there's multiple narratives now of what
Mhm.
happened. There were no planes. There were planes, but no one was in them. It was all fake. It was a missile. And there, so it's more now about obfuscating it. And so, fast forward to what we're dealing with now, when you try to talk to people about evidence that you have that, like, this, wearing masks doesn't work, and social distancing doesn't work, people a lot of times will say to you, well, they just don't know, no one knows, and I think that
Yeah.
that's the new technique by the government, is like they're aware that people are becoming hip to what they're doing, so
Yeah.
now it's all about put out multiple narratives to confuse everybody and make it to where people just give up
Yeah,
even trying to
The
misdirection.
term, there's actually a term, it's called poisoning the well, is the
Mm,
term the intelligence agencies use. And, I break down how the intelligence agencies are part of it. And I really like this control of perception. This goes back to the founding of the country, where the Federalists were using control of the media back then to stifle the case of the anti-federalists, and to amplify the propaganda of the Federalists. I mean, it goes back, all the way back to the quote unquote founding of the country. This partnership between this organized crime system and the media. And so, these are ancient techniques. The original Etienne de la Boetie was writing in, kind of 1560 time frame. And back in 1560, he was writing about techniques that at that time were hundreds and thousands of years old. And it really is a playbook, and it's been used for a very, very long time. And like I said, once you understand the playbook, it's very, very hard to be fooled by the magician.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you were in a libertarian think tank. So I'm assuming at that time you considered yourself a libertarian?
I still do. I think libertarian is an umbrella term. Now I refer to myself as a voluntarist, but I would, I think libertarian is the big tent. Voluntarism, I would, kind of lump in there as a branch of that. But I'm a, voluntarist libertarian.
And what has that led you to in terms of solutions to the issues that we're dealing with now? Uh, do you think that there is a solution through government, or are you more focused on the voluntarist side?
No, I'm focused on the voluntarist side, and really, once you expose the illegitimacy of government, the immorality of government, the illogical nature of government, the trying to delegate rights you don't have yourself to a representative to represent you doing something you don't have to do yourself, the flawed ethics of democracy, two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner, the inability to be bound by the social contract that you didn't sign, after kind of come to that realization that it is 100% illegitimate and not desirable and not necessary to have a government, and you have a little bit of background in economics, then you realize, hey, we really don't need to have a government. Everything that the government does would be provided much better, cheaper, faster, more efficiently by the free market, or by mutual aid societies, or by real charity, or likely shouldn't be done by the government at all. Once you kind of have that like general understanding, then I describe voluntarism as the only ism that is fair for everybody. Nobody gets to use the ring of power on anybody else. Nobody gets rights that other people don't have, not even the government. The government doesn't get a exception for morality. Among logical, moral people, voluntarism really is the only game in town. It's the only ism that's fair for everybody. Nobody gets the ring of power. Nobody gets to use violence or extortion or threats of violence on anybody else. And that is the way that men should live with each other. That is moral, it's logical. And so that's really the, kind of the other message of the book, is that there is a way out of this, where we can harness the capital creation of the market and live without the violence and without the illogical nature of government.
Yeah, that's definitely where it's at. Voluntary interaction. That's natural as well.
Yeah.
I think the programming, the conditioning it goes so deep for many generations, hundreds and thousands of years, um, but yet the concepts we are talking about are the most simple, just rights. What is a
Yep.
right? You can't delegate a right that you don't have yourself, and it's really philosophy at the core. And so it's good to kind of give people the evidence like how you do in your book. That's phenomenal. So it kind of wakes them up, and then also bring them back a little bit to the foundational principles of morality and rights. And then the aha moment, government is immoral, illegitimate, and completely artificial.
And running game on you and using these unethically manipulative techniques of getting a hold of your kids when they're young, before they're old enough to really understand what's going on, and begin making them pledge their allegiance and engage in common prayer, and taking them to Mecca, and taking them to the cathedral of the Capitol building and the temples and the monuments, and see the deities, and kind of trying to slide them using all the tools and techniques of an unethically manipulative religion to try and slide your kids, an obedience and a fealty and an adoration to a system that is robbing them of over half their income in overt taxes, covert taxes and inflation, which is now just openly acting tyrannical against them, bankrupting businesses, and instituting crazy fear based on a virus with a 99.96 recovery rate, and what smells to everybody that with two neurons rubbed together that looks like a giant scam.
Absolutely. Government is a religious cult, a violent religious
Yeah.
cult, right? If you don't share their belief system, then they will use violence, duress, coercion against you for sure. And they want your kids. It's scary. It's scary shit, but it's time for, people to wake up and take their power back and act.
Do you
And more are.
go ahead?
I was just saying, more people are pulling their kids out of the system, that are homeschooling them, that are unschooling them. The scamdemic has now made it worse, and so I really think that humanity is finally waking up to the biggest con, and it's a revolution that's only going in one direction. Once people realize that there is a man behind the curtain, and once people realize that government is illegitimate, illogical, not necessary, not desirable, they don't really go back to believing in government once the scam of government is exposed. And so this revolution is only going in one direction, and it really is just, like, once you realize it's not legitimate and they've been running game on you,
Mm.
it's kind of game over for government, once the cat is out of the bag.
How do you deal with people who continue to try to operate through the government, continue to think that there's some solution through government? Where do you see that going in terms of society wise? I mean, obviously there's a push now for government to even take more control, and I run into a lot of people who are very close to me who can't really wrap their mind around the ideas that we're talking about, which is similar to what you're talking about, natural law and the illegitimacy of this belief in authority, and the criminality and immorality of government. But how do you deal with people in your life who can't relate to that?
I don't. I move on to the next person, because if you don't understand, if you can't understand and don't understand that the television is lying to you, if you can't figure out that the glossy magazines and, that they're all working together. I'm probably not going to have an effect on you, but that's okay, because there's a guy right down the block that's figured it out and is looking for the answers and the solutions that we provide, and just move on to the next person. But it is I think the other part of the question is, well, now that society is waking up, how can we accelerate it? How can we as free humanity overcome this idea, this belief system that has been forced and indoctrinated into the majority of our fellow men? And I really believe that the way to do it is to get around the algorithmic censorship on the DARPA internet and go door to door in a single state, create a libertarian redoubt, and widely expose the illegitimacy in the government of government, the criminality of the media, and you just roll through a single state, get a focused effort, and the two states that I like the best are New Hampshire, which has the Free State Project, and I've been putting some of my effort in Arizona, which has a tremendous liberty movement kind of on the West Coast, and so those two states I think are probably the easiest for the liberty movement to capture, that have kind of big standing armies of libertarian activists, and a history and a tradition of freedom, liberty, individual rights, and have the right kind of culture to be able to say no, and where you could engineer civil disobedience, where when the government's um, shave-headed order followers show up, there's enough of the population kind of laughing at them, explaining, hey, you're been part of this program. We don't do that here. When the people outnumber the enforcers and begin to mock them and kind of laugh at them to a certain degree, it's all over. We just don't, like it, because, you know, they're running game on you. And once you realize they're running game on you, and enough people realize it, it ain't cool to be an enforcer anymore. Once you realize how the playbook works.
Yeah, we got to bring back these more traditional tactics, right? Holding signs on the street corner, door to door, talking to people face to face. Those are extremely powerful when activated.
Yeah. And I love what you said about getting around
Exactly, and you can get around the algorithmic censorship of the internet, because um, you know bang, bang, bang. Oh, look, here's a book, here's a documentary, here's all of the evidence on a 16 gigabit flash drive the size of a credit card. And by the way, we're having a town hall meeting this Saturday where we can answer all your questions and look at all of your neighbors that understand the exact same thing. And by the way, liberty is popular. I'm seeing these groups pop up all over the country. We just got back from a kind of a 4-state Western tour. And in every place that I went, I ran into this developing liberty movement. They're having meetups, they're having get togethers, they're throwing together events, conferences. When we first met, it was in Arkadelphia. It was first year uh, first year event of the Liberty Movement. I mean, a brand new event that just popped up. They're popping up everywhere. The Liberty Movement's popping up everywhere, and so I'm very enthusiastic about our opportunity to expose this and to be rid of government gubernare mente for good.
So, what organizations are you currently working with that you think are having some success with the type of things that you're talking about?
So my main vehicle is the Art of Liberty Foundation, and the Art of Liberty Foundation is, like I said, so we have, I've been trying to figure out, how do you win the whole thing? And when I say win the whole thing, how do you achieve in a single state either secession or civil disobedience at 5 to 20% of the population, where the government is not able to enforce any taxes, is not able to collect any taxes, and is not able to wield its power because it's just outnumbered by citizens that do not believe that it is legitimate, desirable, or necessary to have a government. And when the government agents come out to operate, they're just essentially laughed at. The population understands. They've gotten them to shave their heads. They've put them into the uniform, the single form. That there's a kind of widespread knowledge that makes it uncool to be an order follower, just because so many people understand, the techniques that produce that mindset and the artificiality of it and the unethical manipulativeness of it. And the system I think that the system, we could grind the system to a halt just by exposing how the system works widely and effectively in a single step. That's what the book was designed for. That's what the flash drive was designed for. You partner it up with the right documentary and drop it to 100,000 to 300,000 people in a state of, with a population of, less than 1.5 million, and you're going to have a very, 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 significant impact in that state. And then the rest of the plan essentially involves driving people to town hall meetings where they meet the local liberty community. We get them off of the controlled platforms, the Fedbook and Instagram and Google, etc. We move them to secure, open source, encrypted channels, and we just begin, widely exposing it in a single state, in a single area. We create a libertarian redoubt. None of us are safe as long as there are order followers in our geographical area. And so the thing the world needs is, it needs a redoubt. It needs a place where people don't believe in gubernare mente, don't believe in order following. And so as far as I can tell, the easiest states on the planet to achieve that is New Hampshire and Arizona. That's where I'm focusing part of my efforts. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to do it through the Art of Liberty Foundation. And so that's one of the programs that I like. And then another one is the Thick Red Line Project, which is supporting the police to say no to politicians on victimless crimes, because it's the politician, or it's the police's ability, willingness to use violence on peaceful people for victimless crimes that is causing all of the disharmony and racial division, societal division in our cities and towns. And I think if we can help the police to say no, and we can unite the people and the police against the politicians, then that takes away organized crime's army in a way that benefits both the police and society. And so that's another program that I like. And those are probably my two favorite that popped in mind right off the top of my head.
Yeah, we had our last guest was Henna Maria from she's in Spain. She's her website is The Dawn of Peace, and they've been doing the same thing that we've been doing out here since last summer, is putting up our signs and going out to different areas and just trying to get offer people information. But she's had some success also working with the police in her area, and she mentioned that she had been in contact with Thick Red Line. I forget, Will, do you remember what the name of her organization was?
Police for Freedom.
Police for
Police
Freedom.
for Freedom.
Yep.
And they actually had police out protesting with them in Spain. So, have you ever had the opportunity to actually deal with any law enforcement and talk to them using the techniques of the thick red line?
Yeah. So I've talked to lots and lots of law enforcement. We did civil disobedience and California for months, and every time that they'd come out, we'd stand firm on natural law. And when I was there, 8 weeks out of 8 weeks, the police would try and break up our peaceful civil disobedience, and we'd stand firm on natural law and won every single week. Nobody was ever arrested. They were never able to get us to stop doing what we were doing. And so I know the police don't want to be doing this. And so that's one of the reasons that I support Thick Red Line, is because I know that the majority of police that I've talked to, you can just kind of tell they don't want to be bankrupting local businesses. They don't want to be raising revenue on their friends and family. They haven't had a way out until now. And so now with Police for Freedom, or with the Thick Red Line, these organizations in different countries, the same mission, unite the police behind natural law, and then that brings respect to the police. And the police can keep their jobs as long as they're not raising revenue on their friends and neighbors, and as long as they're not using violence against peaceful people to try and re-engineer society based on political promises. That's something that voluntarists and conservatives and liberals and the left and the right and the center and everybody can agree on. um, and it really is, it unites the people and the police against the politicians. And so I think that that's a movement that's spreading globally, as demonstrated. Police for Freedom, Thick Red Line is in multiple countries now. And so here it comes. The population is figuring out that they don't want the police to do it. And the population, if the population supports the police to say no, then there's nothing that the politicians can really do to force them if they say no collectively. And so I think that's a movement whose time has come.
Yeah, once you take the strong arm for the politicians, out of the equation, then it's heading downhill fast. So that, yeah, both of those movements are gaining traction, and it's great to see where it's gonna go. And yeah, I support both of them. That's excellent.
Yeah, there's a reason why they call it the police state and not the politician state, or not the the ruling class state, right? It's the police
Right.
state, because if it weren't for them, none of these immoral laws would be enforced, and the fear of the monopolization of violence and coercion would not be able to exist. So I think that's very powerful. I've The work we do, we mainly focus on natural law, and then our website gets into kind of talking about the agenda against natural law, or you could say, the conspiracy, a lot of what your book would cover. But I've definitely wanted to get some information included in what we're handing out with the thick red line, because there's a lot of times you will have a police officer come up. We will set up a table just on a street corner somewhere and hold our signs and have information, and we have dealt with police. It would be great to just have a card with the thick red line on it, and I know that their website has materials that you can purchase, right?
Yeah, thickredline.org. And the slogan of the group is, it's you can't have a police state if the police refuse to participate. And I think that's part of the magic of what they're doing, is it's hard to have a police state if the police say no.
Yeah.
And I've noticed too, like you can see that a lot of the police and even military, they're getting uncomfortable with what's going on. It's there's a lack of knowledge there. So it's good that these movements are providing the correct moral information and knowledge, so they, the police and military can activate their conscious and do what's right.
Especially when the police are trained to look at the population as the enemy, right? They're kind of, their training involves sort of having a fear of the population, that the population is, a threat to them. So they are very much brainwashed through their training to, kind of look at the population in that way. One thing I
Well, you
find,
know,
oh,
and it,
go ahead.
well, I was just going to say that I think, because I don't see the police as the enemy. I see the police as our brethren. I see the politicians as the enemy. And I used to live in Northern Virginia, and I was on the steps of the Richmond Capitol earlier this year, or last year, sorry, in January. I think it was January. Yeah, January. For when there was 22,000 plus armed Virginians protesting draconian proposed gun legislation in the state of Virginia. And what you realize very, very quickly, when there's 22,000 armed Virginians standing, arm to arm, armed way better than the police, way, 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 way better than the police, that the police don't want to be on the wrong side of the people. They're outnumbered, they're outgunned, they're outarmed. So the only way that it can be is the police united with the people against the politicians. And then that's good for the people, that's good for the police, and it's bad for the politicians.
That's amazing that they had that many people out there. I mean, I've been involved with the health freedom movement out here, and we had a lot of people at the Capitol at the end of 2019 trying to push back against some of the bills that they were passing, which were basically precursors to the COVID situation. They could basically quarantine you in your home over an outbreak. But yeah, I mean, those politicians, they didn't care at all, and they didn't listen. And it's nice to know that there are states in the country that have that type of unity, that they actually all come out and stand up for it. California is a little bit of a scary place to be in terms of that type of organization. I see people who are still going to the Capitol, and these are people I respect and I appreciate, but I see them out there, going in and talking to the politicians about bills that they don't like, and these politicians are not listening to them at all. And it's like, I just wish these people could understand the power in just not participating, stop paying taxes, work with your community, and but people still think, I'll give you a good example is the recall against Gavin Newsom. I don't trust that at all. The fact that that's even gaining any traction, I think there must be some type of underlying reason why this is being allowed to happen, because if they didn't want it to happen, they would just put an end to it. I don't think that there's any solution in terms of signing petitions or trying to do a recall, and put someone else in. But apparently there's lots of people who are still participating in the system and thinking that they're going to get results that way.
They may be participating in it, but they're also learning how corrupt it is. You just had the disenfranchisement of half the voting population, where they watched the election stolen from one side. And, so now they're realizing the illegitimacy of the system at a rate that I've never seen before. I've never seen so many people, you know, coming to the realization of the system's illegitimacy as I'm seeing right now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I hope so. I still see a lot of people out there, just thinking that if they at least, and again, I'm coming from California, so it's a little bit of a different climate out here, but they talk about the state house as our house. This is our house. We pay for this. These people are driving around in Cadillacs and this and that, and I'm like, why don't you stop paying taxes? Why don't we all get together and boycott this stuff, instead of like banging our head against the wall when we know how corrupt it is and how bad they cheat. So, I guess, we just have to keep pushing with our message of, how illegitimate it is and how corrupt it is, and using techniques like sharing your book and information like that with people, different approaches to trying to reach people.
Definitely.
Yeah. So anyway, why don't you let us know where we can find your work, where we can find your book? I know you said it already, but why don't you go ahead and plug it again?
Yeah, it's government-scam.com is the book. You can download the book for free, and you can access at government-scam/liberator. You can access for free the 16 gigabits of of documentaries, podcasts, MP3s, visualizations that back up the book. That's in a Dropbox. Anybody can make a Liberator, or you can order some of our credit card size flash drives, so you can always have it with you. Um, government-scam.com and government-scam/liberator are the two key links. And you can find out all about the Art of Liberty Foundation, and download our executive summary on how you free a single state. What is the solution for freeing a single state? We think we've got a pretty good game plan, and you can find it all at government-scam.com.
That's phenomenal. I love the credit card size flash drives, man. I might have to get some of those and pass them out like business cards. Great idea.
We're going to put it
Once you have a Liberator, anybody can make a Liberator. So we actually give you the labels needed to make your own Liberators. And so it's these are innovative viral ways of getting the evidence of government criminality, and illegitimacy out to the people. They can't be censored. It's a sneaker net solution. It is 100% foolproof when you hand somebody 16 gigabits of evidence of government criminality and illegitimacy. There's no way to censor it. There's no way to stop it.
That's awesome.
Definitely.
Well, we're going to put it to the test out here in California, man. We got an uphill battle out here. But we really appreciate the work you're doing, and hopefully soon I can get out of California and come join you in Arizona.
It's much freer in Arizona. I got to tell you, you guys would like it here. They've already got the freedom mindset. So many people aren't going along with the lockdowns. So many people aren't going along with the mask mandates. It is one of the best states. Besides, it's like, as far as I can tell, and I've been to a lot of different states over the past year. I have not let it slow me down a bit. It's as good as Florida here, and it's just right across the border. This is one of the two states that I'm working freeing, and so come on in. The water's fine. A lot of sheriffs saying no out here to lockdowns, mask mandates, red flag laws, and so one of the top places to be in the country as far as I can tell.
That's great. Well, we really appreciate you coming on, and we're glad that we are able to share your information with our audience. And we think it's really useful um, pieces of information that you've produced for people to use and to add to our repertoire of information. So, yeah, once again, thanks a lot for coming on.
And thank you guys for what y'all do. It really is. It's 1,000 flowers blooming, everybody doing their own like little thing, beginning to collaborate and work together. And this is how we win. They can't censor us all. And it's a positive upward spiral.
Excellent, man. Appreciate it, brother. Thanks for doing the great work and coming on the show.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you to your audience. Peace, love, voluntarism.
Yep. And always remember, put something good in the air and plant something good in the earth. Peace.